DJing has taught me to fail many times in front of many people.
The world is full of people ready and willing to tell you that you ain't it. Believe me, just walk outside.
Feeling like there's no one there to talk to and there's no one there who will understand, whereas everyone's gone through something at some point.
I'm a recovering people pleaser, and once I feel that fear, I feel the drive to overcome it. It's almost like I need to prove it to myself.
I think every single stage of my life I've dealt with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I believe in underdogs as well, and I definitely would describe you as an underdog. So
Fear. How do you get past it?
I don't think you do. I think you just learn to...
You are now tuned in to the Tokyo Diaries podcast. Sensational.
Hello, welcome to the Tokyo Diaries. I'm your host, Jenkinson, Denzel Southern. And I'm joined by my other co-host. It's okay. We went 1 second. 1 second.
Okay.
Thank you, go.
Okay. And I'm your host, Safa Miller, and we're joined today by Tasha.
Hi, I'm Tasha.
So, Tasha, we actually go way back. Before the audience, please introduce yourself.
So I'm Tasha. We go way back. We went to secondary school together, and it's been a long time since we've seen each other since. But since then, I'm a DJ, and just expressing myself creatively in many different ways at the moment. But yeah, I think that's pretty much sums me up, I guess. Yeah.
Amazing. We'll get more into Tasha, but first of all, guys, welcome to the first episode of Tokyo Diaries. It's been a very, very, very long, hard road. There's been many ups and downs, and the devil has tried his best to not make this happen. But
and
we're
just
here.
Talking about this morning. This is just this morning.
Honestly, Saf, you want to give away what happened this morning coming in?
Oh my God. There was, it was supposed to be a half an hour journey in. It took us 2 hours to get here. But we're here, so.
Yes. But hey, we couldn't stop it. But yes, today, the first episode is what we call the fear paradox. What is stopping you? Number one thing we'd say in our life is fear, particularly in this generation with the age of social media and the digital age we live in. So to everyone on the panel right now, what is fear to you, you'd say?
Okay, so fear to me is that feeling of, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to do this. It's like jumping and then falling halfway through. Before you've even jumped, it's that feeling of, I'm not going to be able to make it. So it's the way that you talk to yourself before you even make a step.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think fear is like that everyday battle of where you want to be and where you are, and I guess that friction in between that. That's how I would describe the fear in my life anyway.
Speaking of where you want to be, is there a moment for you, Tasha, that you felt in your recent years kind of was a moment that stuck out to you where you were at a crossroads of what you're going to do, and there are moments where you picked fear over bravery that come to mind?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I think I'm a recovering people pleaser. So
I know the feeling.
Kind of leaving that behind you can bring a sense of fear, because I feel like I built a lot of my relationships on being a people pleaser, and then I had to think about whether that was me being authentic to myself. So yeah, that was definitely a crossroad for me. Like, are people still going to want to be my friend if I'm not as dependable as I was, if I choose myself a lot more? And there was definitely a lot of fear around that in terms of being myself authentically in my relationships, as well as my everyday life. But yeah, I think.
Well, you're now a renowned DJ in London, the cheapest city on the planet. How did that come about?
I have just been very blessed and highly favored, because it was really in my bedroom. I've just always been someone that I never thought I was creative. I was always someone that was jealous of people who knew what they wanted to do in life. Like they woke up one day and they knew they wanted to be a lawyer, or they knew they wanted to be a doctor, and I kind of just went with life depending on what I was good at, and just trying to make it work. And then I just found this like love for music. I used to go to like house events, and I just used to like watch the DJ and just imagine myself doing that. And it's the only thing that really brought me like so much joy and excitement. And then I just decided I'm gonna learn. And then I started posting stuff on Instagram, and people started taking notice. And luckily, because I was a party girl, I knew a lot of people in the scene, and a few of them believed in me and put me on, and it's just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, you mentioned people pleasing, and I think that's a big one. I mean, I wasn't as popular as you in school, Tasha. I mean, and that's the story we'll get
You're
on to.
overselling it.
I this is my moment. I waited for this moment for 10 years. But how do you guys feel? Because I feel like we all have a bit of that in us. I definitely have had that working like in film and trying to be accepted and like my peers and taken seriously, and that's not even mentioned like imposter syndrome. So for all you guys, what are like some moments that you can think of that you chose fear above believing in yourself, particularly when you were younger, or even to this day? Because I still have moments, to be honest.
So choosing fear over believing in yourself.
Yeah.
I think with a lot of like opportunities that I've had in the past, like there's been opportunities to do something really, really cool, but it's like, oh my God, like I don't know what people are going to think of me. And I think that's why I wanted to start this podcast, was because I was like, I'm sick of wanting to do something and always seeing people, like you mentioned, people like looking at people who were doing really cool and creative things and thinking, oh, I'm not a creative, I'm not that type of person. So I've kind of moved away from that, and this is scary. Like this is a scary thing. I think I've never really been the person that's in front of the camera. So for me, like choosing to do something but feeling the fear anyway and choosing to do it is really important to me. And I think, yeah, so I can't think of one particular instance, but definitely there's been a lot of like creative opportunities that I thought, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm not a creative person, or I'm not that kind of person that does that, and I really regret that.
Yeah. Tash?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I can't think of a moment where I've let fear stop me from doing something. I feel like I'm just someone that takes a lot of risks, and once I feel that fear, I feel the drive to overcome it. It's almost like I need to prove it to myself, and I need to fight through it and make sure this works. And sometimes I feel like maybe because I go to church as well, they always tell you like fear is not from God. So like if you're feeling that fear, push through. I think but there probably is many times where I've been scared and not done something to at least my fullest potential, rather than stopping doing it completely. Like especially when I'm playing out, for example, sometimes I'm really shy, and I know I shouldn't be that way. Like I need to be confident and to engage with the crowd, but there's sometimes where the fear of like not doing so well or not being received well stops me from going to 10 and maybe just giving like a 7.
Yeah.
And how do you push through that? What's the thought process behind, okay, I'm feeling scared now, I'm feeling anxious, I'm about to go up. How do you get from that feeling to actually going up and pushing and trying your best regardless of how you're feeling?
I rely a lot on the people around me to push me through. Just having a familiar person has really helped. And also just my faith in God. I'm just like you said, just do things scared. I'm petrified, but if I don't, I'm not going to get to where I need to get to. I think it's definitely that motivation. The end goal is what pushes me to just do it. And regardless of the fear, just fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I think that's such an important lesson that I think people, especially around our age where we're trying out lots of different things, and you're seeing people, especially on social media, who are living their best life, and you can see that they're living their best life, but you kind of, I think there's that dissonance between, okay, so they're living their best life, but are they really? And that idea of faking it till they make it, because like no one's got a perfect life. No one's got that. And I think a lot of people do fake it, but they do make it. And I think there's nothing wrong with just pushing through and saying, okay, well, I'm not feeling 100% right now. I'm not feeling great, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah.
And this is what we want the podcast to be, that authenticity. But we understand that starts with us and saying that, we were an hour late for our booking today. And that's not cool. That's not hip, fresh, chic, or whatever the kids call it, all that stuff, or fetch, Regina George. But I think when I admit, you know what, in front of all these lights that they can't see right now, there's like 4 cameras, an amazing Irishman cutting this right now. There's a large part of me is like, don't mess up, don't mess up, don't mess up. But the minute I start speaking about it, it's like it loses its power. And for me, going what your story said, I think when I just accept that, I don't fight it, and I'm a big believer in letting go, and the whole let go, let God. But I'm whatever you resist, persist. So I was like, okay, it didn't go exactly everything to plan, but let me just accept that, admit that on the podcast. And funny enough, you know how when you admit your weaknesses and your flaws in front of people, you come across cool or but when you're trying to look cool that's when people can just sense it from a mile away that something's not in lieu. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good segue into how you and Tasha were at school.
Oh
gosh.
Let me get my boxing gloves real quick. Honestly. But yes. So Tasha, what school did we go to, my friend?
We went to Barking Abbey Secondary School.
Yes, represent. East London.
Best
place in the world.
Yes, I love Barking Abbey.
Want to get stabbed? Anyway, I'm not say that. But it's a lovely place. But I wasn't who I was now. Let's just say that. A lot less stressed, a lot less confidence, and minus a million things. My heart was there, but what you see now in the presentation, I wasn't. Tasha, on the other hand, how was Barking Abbey Secondary School in sixth form for you?
I mean, I was having a great time.
You know, yeah.
I love that for you. I love that.
Yeah, I think like prior to secondary school, I've been to so many different schools. And when secondary school was the first place where like I stayed the whole time, and I really felt that sense of community in that school.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like our school was good in terms of there wasn't too many bad breeds, like in comparison to other schools. Yeah.
Eastbury, yeah, you know, Eastbury, yeah.
They even called our school soft or whatever, but you know, we were good kids. So I had a really cool and like loving girlfriends, and like that made my whole experience in school.
Yeah.
And aside from obviously all the teenage stuff and mistakes that that you just figuring yourself out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like just figuring out like how you want to present yourself. That's a really good point. You know, I remember like rolling up my skirt in school and
jack-ups. Yeah, that was a big thing. Jack-ups. That whole Michael Jackson era. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
You have no real sense of identity, but you're yearning for
acceptance.
Yeah. So definitely like figuring out, you know, who I wanted to be, how I wanted to present myself. Like those are the kind of the biggest struggles I think I went through. But otherwise, yeah, like school was great. Generally.
How did you make it through it? Because that's a lot, and I feel like a lot of kids deal with that now, particularly because we didn't have an Instagram, or at least when Instagram was coming in, we were going to like uni when it was starting to really pop off and become like the norm. But we had like MySpace and Facebook and like Pokin. But kids are living in this now, and just from your own opinion, how do they deal with like finding that identity whilst the world of social media, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, and so many other things? What do you feel like helped you, that you feel like in someone in your position could do to kind of get through that moment of adolescence?
I personally don't think I found my identity in school. I think I found like what I wanted out of relationships with friends. Yeah. And I think that was a core thing that helped me have confidence, because I loved my girls loved me, and as long as they were good and we were good, and yeah, we used to do the most as well.
I know.
We used to do the most. So for me, it was like I had my little bubble and I was happy with that bubble. When I went to university, that's when I was like, wow, like I actually don't have a sense of who I am outside of my friends at home. And actually I'm quite different to them when I think about it. So yeah, I think adolescence is just, I don't know how people are going through it. Like I don't have advice. My only thing is stay with good people, stay around good influences, and then like the rest, may God be with you.
University, I feel like, is the ultimate humbler, because it's the first time where you're away from home, and you know, it's good go London kids. It's like, you know, everything is mum and dad, and you don't appreciate it till it's gone, and then you realize. My mum had this saying, charity begins at home. And when I went to university, I saw that. You saw how people were raised without even asking them. So Safa, for you, is there anything that you kind of went through that, you know, for people, particularly young girls, because I think it's different. Like, I'll speak to the young men, but there were things that women dealt through that we saw in school, like so many things we even mentioned, but like I think it only gets worse now because of the inclusion of social media. But is there anything you'd say on your side that happened that kind of helped you get through that part of learning your identity, because it humbles you very quickly?
Yeah, I think I was in a very unique position because I went to an all-girls school, and it's not really the norm down here, I think, but up north, like where I'm from, there's a lot of single-sex schools. So everyone I knew went to an all-girls school or an all-boys school. So I think what you said about finding like your tribe in school and finding like a good group of girls and people that you could hang out with and people you could talk to, like not even just like go out to parties with or like go shopping with, but people you could actually talk to was really, really important. And I've got friends now who are maybe watching who I met when I was like 11, 12, and I'm still friends with them now. And I think that carried me through all of those really hard times, because there's been a lot of hard times. And everyone goes through it because obviously the world's changing as you're changing, and then things just, it's your first time doing life. So like there's so many things that you just don't know. And I think when we're young, we kind of think, okay, well, I know everything because in my limited space, I'm like the big fish. Whereas you kind of grow up, and when you go to university, you realize that the world's a lot bigger than you think it is. And I think having that group of friends that can ground you and say, okay, well, this is where you're going, but come back to us when you need to know where you're from. I think that's really, really important.
Did some friendships fade away though over time?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the hard thing of growing up, is you've grown up in this very small area. Like your world's only as big as like your school and your family, really. So when you move away from that and people start to figure out who they are, maybe you don't fit into their world and maybe they don't fit into yours. And it's not even that you necessarily wish bad on each other or you want any bad will for them, but it's just they're not your people anymore, and that's fine. Like we're not meant to stay in the same place forever. Like I think as a species we wander and that's a very normal thing.
Tasha, you go through that?
Yeah, definitely. I think they don't prepare you for the fact that during adulthood you have to let people go, like, and sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes it just happens. That's one thing I'm still adjusting to, because I think even as you have family, you're probably not going to be able to see certain friends as much as you used to. So yeah. I had a question for you actually. So you mentioned before that you weren't who you are now in school. What do you think sparked?
I heard that. Tasha. I know you.
I'm interested.
So can you give us a little bit about how you were like in school? What you think changed for you, and how you sort of worked through those changes?
The truth is I didn't love myself. And I say that to people, that I think there's 3 stages. There's not knowing who you are, knowing who you are, and then knowing who you are and liking it. And I think most people are stuck in that first 2 where they know who they are, but they're either trying to fight it and haven't accepted it yet. I was at the stage where for the most part of my secondary school, I didn't know who I was. When I got to 6th form, it was like, okay, I know who I am deep down, but I just don't like the guy. And the crazy thing is, the only real difference between that guy and the guy you see right now is that I like him. You know, I know all his flaws, I know his mistakes, I know that sometimes he speaks too fast and he likes talking to people, sometimes too much for his relationship. I know all that stuff about him, but I know that he's kind, he's caring, he's patient. Even when it's hard, there's a lot of things I do like about him. And that's scary. It's scary saying, you know what? How was I treated as a child? What did I go through in my childhood that made me not believe in myself, that made me have avoidant attachment issues? What made me have all these issues? And that's a difficult conversation to have with yourself at any point in your life, particularly in your 20s when you're told to have it figured out. And I think the difference between that is not only that I knew that I had to figure out why I was who I was, but also I had to figure out why I liked him and if I liked him. And I think that's a journey that a lot of people, some in their 40s and 50s, haven't had that conversation with themselves. Like, okay, do I actually like who I am? You know, because I think you find out who you are and then you try to be so many other different versions of yourself to appease others. But for me, particularly as a young man, where you're told this is masculinity, I think there are core things, but then you got to decide for you, what is a man? I believe a man is something of service, a service to his community, his people, his planet, his family, his friends, his community. And that is for me. And that may not be what yours is, but I had that very difficult, a lot of tears, a lot of dark nights and lonely nights, but you don't get to the light without going through the dark. So that's what helped me. Yeah.
That is surprising to me, to be fair, to know that anyway, but because that's definitely not the perception I remember having of you.
It's crazy, isn't it? When people go,
What was your perception of him?
My perception of him was, no, it really wasn't. It wasn't.
Sixth form me or secondary? Sixth form, okay. Sixth form I was a floater, where I was like, I could hang with like you guys and like the popular kids. Sorry. But
I just felt like you were just confident in terms of like you don't need to be in a certain type of person. Like you were just happy doing you. That was the energy I got. Like, yeah, you weren't that interested in what other people were doing, because to me, I got the impression that that's just not where you wanted to be, or maybe you were figuring out what it was, but you definitely knew that wasn't you. So you were just doing you.
Isn't that so wild? I can have a whole story in my head about what I'm going through, but from the outside, you're like, oh, he's cool as a cucumber. But I'm like going for like 6 metamorphoses in my head about what is life and all this stuff. Have any of you guys gone through that, where you've been going through them mentally, but on the surface, people are none the wiser to it?
Oh my God, 100%. Yeah. I think everyone does to an extent. I think going back to what we said about social media is everything can be fine and dandy on the outside, and then when you actually get into the people behind it, it's all going horribly wrong. And I think it's a good thing and a bad thing in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people will hold it together because they believe that there's things worth holding it together for. But then I think we kind of can put ourselves in a really horrible position of feeling like there's no one there to talk to and there's no one there who will understand, whereas everyone's gone through something at some point. So yeah, I think community is what makes us strong, going back to what you said about community. And I think the really nice thing about stuff like this is we can talk about it and people listen. So yeah, we can say, yeah, I've been struggling, or yeah, I've not had a great time. And that's okay because it's the truth.
Yeah. Tash?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Sorry, I actually forgot what the question was.
Can I just say I'm so proud of you, by the way. Like you guys obviously don't see this, and Saf is just realizing this now. But I mean, you were well together right now, but you were a lovely girl. But I'm seeing like a woman in front of me right now. Like, no, it's true, and even Safa too, because me and you, we know this wasn't easy getting to the stage. So I just want to say honestly, like, I give you your flowers, man. You're doing so well.
Yeah, and I'm proud of you as well. I'm proud of what you're trying to achieve here, and like, you know, like you're definitely filled with purpose, and I can see that, and it's great that you have someone with you that supports you and also is on that track. So it's good to see as well, and I love working with people that I know, and yeah, I believe in underdogs as well, and I definitely would describe you as an underdog. So
click it.
I love a good underdog. But yeah, there was actually something you mentioned that it just flew out my head.
Community, how we find strength in other people.
What was it? Was it about the identity, right? Like
holding it together because they have something to hold it together for.
Is any of this coming close?
It's fine.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
So just to kind of keep a bottleneck on it and wrap it up. So Tasha, what you say is next for you, like career-wise? What are you trying to do? What is like hypothetically best case scenario for you the next 6 months from now, you'd say?
The next 6 months from now, definitely I want to go all in on my music. I want to really explore myself creatively and just get rid of the imposter syndrome of you can't do that, you know, people might think this if you do that. I just want to go all in and try and see what happens. I think this past year has shown me that I can do it, and it's been such an encouraging year for me that it's almost like, why not? I think my biggest fear is actually looking back at my life and regretting not trying. Failing is not really a fear for me, because DJing has taught me to fail many times in front of many people. And now it's just like, you know what, whatever, I'll survive failure, but I just will not survive regret. So yeah, that's next for me.
Safa, next 6 months?
Next 6 months, I think working on this, getting this into a good place, and then just even like professionally, I want to move forward in my career because I'm a very ambitious person. I've got things I want to do. So yeah. What about you?
Safa's a project manager, if you didn't know, which is one of the highest paid jobs in the country.
Wow.
Just saying.
I haven't heard it. I haven't seen it.
just saying. She's doing good, but she deserves it. So final 2 questions, I'd say it's lovely that you mentioned about imposter syndrome, just the last 2 questions, because I don't get any of that from your Instagram. When I look at your Instagram, and as we'll leave here at the bottom, it's like, this girl is banging it out. She's in her bag and she knows it. And it's crazy that you're like, oh my God, I failed. I'm like, but I'm looking at that and I'm like, you're doing better than me, but you got more followers for one. But then also it's like, I find that so interesting how like like you did for me, Barkanabi, I thought that like I didn't know who I was and I was just putting on a good front. And you were like, no, he seems cool. And I'm like, you look like you're on top of the world. And when you still, and I know conjectively you still have those feelings, but I was like, imposter syndrome. Like, you're Tasha. Like, you know, you go together, right?
It's funny because a lot of people say this to me, and I'm just like, it just doesn't. It's not. I think because when you know where you are trying to be and you're not there, there's like, and other people are probably seeing you from their own perception, whereas my perception is somewhere else. Like, I'm definitely a dreamer. I've seen like myself 10, 20 years from now, and until I get there, it's not. I'm learning to be content, and I'm learning to be grateful, and I'm learning to like also be okay with what if I don't get that in 20 years. But in terms of my Instagram, it just happens to be like that.
What can I say? I'm that good.
Rich flex. Okay, Drizzy. Okay. And I say,
blessed and highly favored.
Amen. So, last question for all of us. You talked a lot about fear, imposter syndrome. Actually, Safa, imposter syndrome. Have you dealt with it? Particularly going to project management, and I'll talk for film. Like,
I think every single stage of my life, I've dealt with imposter syndrome. I came from like, I think my background was quite up in the air, kind of not really sure where I was going. And then even like when I was young, I knew I was ambitious. I knew I wanted to go far. I just didn't know where to go to get there and how to do it and what way to do it that was genuine to me. So I think every single space that I've been in. So I went to a grammar school. I went there from a comprehensive school, and then got a scholarship to a private school. And I'm very upfront about that. It's not something that I'm like, oh, like I want to hide, because it was hard. It was a long, hard slog. And I think there's been so many times in my life where I felt like I didn't belong for whatever reason. Like, and I think moving into my career now, I did an English degree. It's not a direct route into project management. And I think being in a space where there's so many changes and so many things that like people have come in from all sorts of backgrounds and they're very, very intelligent people, I think you kind of start to doubt yourself. But I think putting a front on and just being like, yeah, no, I trust myself to, even if I don't know, I trust myself that I'll find out and I'll make it work. And I think that's so important.
Man. And the crazy thing is, right now on this couch, there's multiple ethnicities and cultures, and I think that goes without saying. Like, you know, without saying it, it's harder for us to get into those spaces, and particularly for film. Jesus Christ, it can be who you know. Like, you see people who come into it day one and get pushed, exalted, or people who slug it for 10, 20 years just to get to that same point. But like you said, Tasha, I think it's about not letting that stop you, and it's much easier said than done. Because you know, pain is pain, it demands to be felt. But for film, I'd say I felt like, well, I haven't got a rich backer, I haven't got an investor, I haven't got this, I don't come from a rich family, I don't come from generational wealth. I'm just a guy that took a film degree and took 4 years to do a 3-year degree because I was filming so much outside of class that I got held back a year, and I spent all my money, pocket money, on film cameras instead of actual food, you know, and selling my PlayStation to afford cameras to rent. Sony A7S, great camera. You know, I made the sacrifices. And that's why I want to speak mostly to people who are in that position where they don't have all the resources given to them, but that shouldn't let that stop you. It will be harder. There is more bumps along that road, but I think they make you who you are. And looking at the women in front of me, Safa and Tasha, and I can see that you've been hardened by those experiences. So it hurts and it's harder, but I think that the reward in the end is much more beautiful. So final question, fear. How do you get past it, in your opinion, for each of us?
I don't think you do. I think you just learn to do things scared and get through it. And I think the more you do, the less you fear, I think, as well. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is I don't think there's always going to be things that are scary. There's big things that are beyond you in every single stage of your life. I think you learn by doing and you become less scared by doing. And I think it's just the only choice is to just push on.
Yeah, I say the same, baby steps. Like it's say, for example, if you want to get into film, just shoot a short film, a minute. And it may sound silly, but you got to make it so small that your brain is like, oh, whatever. It's almost like when you're cutting down a tree, you do it bit by bit instead of trying to take down the entire trunk all in one. So I'd say just baby steps. And first of all, I mean, we all believe you can. I do, Safa does, Tasha does, but you got to believe that you can. And without belief is the fuel to your dreams. Like, you can have all the resources, the money, the network, the connection, but if you don't believe you're the guy, you're the girl, people will read that off you from a mile away. Trust me, I've been there. So I think, first of all, do the inner work of believing that you're built for this, that you're ready for this. And then that will help you in the outside world, because the world is full of people ready and willing to tell you that you ain't it. Believe me, just walk outside. So you got to be iron proof, or be working on yourself to do that, and do that inner work, because if you don't do it, it has a funny way of exposing you, and you at least want it to. So just be honest with yourself and believe that you're here for a reason and you belong here.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that is our first episode of Tokyo Diaries. We got there in the end. Tasha, Miss Tasha, my lovely DJ friend from London. By the way, as a Londoner, I'm proud of you. Like, good East London kids.
Sorry.
Like, yes. Where can they find you?
Thank you?
Socials, everything.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok. It's Tash Era, Tash_Era, ERA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Safa, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at Safa Miller.
Yes, and you can find me at Mav the Filmmaker, MEV, the filmmaker with 2 M's, please, and at Maverick Studios and at Tokyo Diaries. You can watch the podcast on TikTok, YouTube, and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in for the first episode. Thank you so much. We've been nervous, but we pushed forward to let that be an example to you. We're terrified, and we're still doing it. So what's your excuse?
Pitter-patter.
Exactly. I believe in you. Safa believes in you. Tash, lovely DJ from London, believes in you. But the question is, do you believe in you? And that is down for you to do. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Thank you, bro.
What's that?